Let justice roll down like water, righteousness like a mighty stream. For our grandsons and granddaughters, remember to remember the dream. Welcome to Songs and Stories from Home, as we continue to remember the dream. This week, the Montgomery Bus Boycott. This great American story, the story of the Civil Rights Movement, is about making the American dream more real for all Americans. It's about the continued desire for true economic justice and meaningful racial justice. It's a story filled with countless deeds, acts of courage, small and large, many forgotten, many unforgettable. It's a story of the indomitability of the human spirit. Like all great stories, it's complicated on one hand, and on the other hand, simple. At its core, it's about human decency, dignity, and equality. And while there may be good people on both sides, in the end, it's about coming down on the side of justice and the Declaration of Independence. There's a perception by some that the whole story is simply Rosa Parks sits down and Dr. King stands up. The Montgomery Bus Boycott was triggered by Rosa Parks not giving up her seat on a crowded bus after a long day. And the more than yearlong test of wills did introduce the young Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. to the country and to the world. And yet there are so many other stories within that one chapter of the larger story. And we'll talk about a few of them in this podcast. Let justice roll down like water, righteousness like a mighty stream. For our grandsons and granddaughters, remember to remember the dream. In Montgomery, we stand near the spot where Rosa Parks refused to give up her seat on the city bus. How unextraordinary the setting appears for an incident that was about to change history. Back then, a city ordinance reserved the first 10 rows of the buses for whites only, the back 10 for blacks, the middle 16 for blacks and whites. On a segregated basis, blacks, less than half the city's population, but more than 3/4 of the ridership, expected to give up their seats if the buses got crowded. And the whites were standing. Members of the local chapter of the NAACP had been searching for someone to challenge that discriminatory law, and on December 1st, 1955, Rosa Parks, seamstress and NAACP secretary, became that person. That person. A half a dozen years earlier, she'd been stopped from boarding a bus by a driver named James Blake, who told her to get off and board from the back. A common humiliation. And Blake drove off before she could get back on. 12 years later, tired, fed up, she realized that the driver asking her to stand was James Blake. The Montgomery Improvement Association was formed to help organize a boycott. A 26-year-old Dr. Martin Luther King, recently named pastor of the Dexter Avenue Baptist Church, was chosen president and spokesman because it was believed that the city fathers hadn't had time to intimidate him. A one-day strike was ordered. Decision made to keep it going. Dr. King said a miracle was taking place. A miracle of hard work, perseverance, dedication, and sacrifice. Nationwide, churches raised money, collected new and slightly used shoes for the Montgomery residents who had begun walking everywhere. Carpools established. Women like Georgia Gilmore, she lost her city job for her involvement in the boycott, formed a group called the Club from Nowhere. And she set up a business out of her home, cooking and selling baked goods, feeding and fueling the movement in body and spirit. She said, you got to have the willing, but more important, you got to have the get up Toward the end in 1956, the Supreme Court declared the laws segregating buses unconstitutional. And the boycott ended on December 20th, 1956, 381 days after it began. The backlash, quick, brutal. In March of 1957, an ordinance was passed stating that it was unlawful for whites and colored persons to play together or be in the company of each other in any games of cards, dice, dominoes, checkers, pool, billiards, softball, basketball, baseball, football, golf, track, swimming pools, beaches, lakes, or pools or ponds, as well as any games or athletic contests, indoors or out. Rosa Parks left Montgomery due to death threats and blacklisting. By 1963, most African Americans in Montgomery returned to the old custom of riding in the back of the bus. And at the same time, the boycott resounded far beyond the desegregating of public buses. It stimulated action and participation in the civil rights movement, and it gave Dr. King national attention as a rising leader. I'm on my way to Freedom Land. I'm on my way to Freedom Land. I'm on my way to Freedom Land. I'm on my way, great God, I'm on my way. I asked my sister to come with me. I asked my brother, come on with me. Ask my brother and my sister to come with me. I'm on my way. Ah, great God, I'm on my way. I'm on my way. Great God, I'm on my way.